I have about 1:30. So for those of you who are just calling in now, my name is Carla Smith with the Travel Institute. I hope you've attended a past webinar. If you're not, if this is your first one, welcome. This will be about 45 to 50 minutes, and so we'll go ahead and kick this off. And again, welcome, Stephanie. I want to thank you again for coming here and carving out some time to present for our members. And I'm excited to learn the 4 steps for success for finding the perfect host agency.
Great. Well, thanks so much for the intro, Carla, and for hosting the webinar. I'm super excited to be here. And welcome to all of you guys to the webinar. As Carla mentioned, my name is Stephanie Lee, and I'm the founder of the site Host Agency Reviews. The name itself is pretty self-explanatory. As you've probably guessed, we have reviews of various host agencies on the site. As of this month, February 2013, we have over 575 reviews on over 90 different host agencies in the U.S. and Canada. So it's the most comprehensive host agency list out there. But one thing I do want to mention is that the site is also a great resource beyond just the reviews. We have details and overviews on all of the different host agencies, so all the information is aggregated in one place for you. There's a library of articles that help agents start and grow their agencies. And there's a resource page that links to important websites throughout the industry. So if you haven't checked out the site before this webinar, please make sure to do so after. Now, I haven't met most of you, I'm guessing, so I wanted to go over a little bit on my background to make sure that you guys know that this info is coming from a source with a well-rounded background on all issues having to do with host agencies and home-based travel agents. So I've kind of created a checklist, and the first one is, in high school, the basement of my house was transformed into a home-based travel agency when my mom started one up. So besides living alongside of it, I worked on and off at her agency for nearly 15 years helping out the family. And while the office moved throughout the house as the agency expanded from the basement to the living room, then it took over the front office area. It stayed home-based until 2007, and then it became a brick-and-mortar agency. So I'm familiar with the aspects of a brick-and-mortar agency. In fact, I started working full-time at the storefront when it opened, and my job was to focus on building the host agency operations of the company until I left in 2012 to start Host Agency Reviews. And the last one is, like many of you, I'm an entrepreneur. You can say that I have some serious entrepreneurial blood that runs through my family on both sides. So on one side, my grandparents started a restaurant, and on the other side, my grandparents started a butcher shop and a flower shop. My parents both started companies, and as for me, in the past 6 years, I've started 2 different companies, so I'm familiar through the experiences of my family as well as myself. I'm familiar with the challenges that many of you guys are facing. I've also helped hundreds of host agencies get started in the industry while I was working at the host agency, and then I continue that work. Currently, the site receives over 15,000 visitors a month within just 9 months of launching. And a lot of those visitors will write in and ask questions, and I work with them on getting started in the industry, choosing a host agency, and that sort of thing. So let's start off with the basics on why you're using a host agency. And I'm not going to spend too long on this one since most of you are on this webinar. You're already looking for a host agency, so you're familiar with some of the benefits. But what I do want to mention is on my site, there's in the resources section, and I'll show you that really quickly. So right here is where you'll find the resources section. But in that resource section, there's an article in there called 7 Benefits of Using a Host Agency. And if you want more in-depth information, go there and it'll go over all these bullet points more in depth. So one of the big advantages of using a host agency is going to be the lower startup cost. That's huge for a lot of people starting their companies. When you go with a host agency, you're using their accreditation number, which means you're saving time and money by not having to get accredited on your own. You're also going to save when it comes to licensing costs. So again, on the site in the resource section, there's, if you're not familiar with travel agent licensing or seller of travel laws, there's an article called Do I Need a Travel Agent License? And that'll go more in depth into those details. But as of now, there are 6 states that require seller of travel licenses for travel agents. Different rules apply for different states, but when you're with a host, in some states, you can actually be underneath their seller of travel number. So for instance, in Florida, you can save up to $250 a year in licensing fees when you're underneath a host agency. And then another way you can save money is that most host agencies belong to a larger organization, like a franchise or a consortium. When you're with that host agency, you get access into all those tools of, say, Vacation.com or Travel Leaders or Virtuoso, but you're under the host agency's umbrellas and you're not actually paying the fees into those larger associations. The next one is a often forgotten but a very important value that a host agency provides. So they take care of the commissions that come in. They purchase the software that runs reports for you, keeps track of commissions. And so the TRAMS is a big one that's used in travel agencies, and it saves you a lot of money by not having to purchase TRAMS. And it saves you a lot of time because they're keeping track of all the commissions, they're tracking, they're cashing the checks, etc. Another thing they do as far as bookkeeping goes is they set you up with the vendor, and they set up the agency with the vendor. So if there's any changes, they're sending in all the paperwork, faxing everything in, and working with the vendor, so you don't have to do that, and you can focus on selling travel. And then many host agencies are very large travel agencies. They've usually been around for a long time and have very established relationships with vendors. So when you join that host agency, especially if you're new to the industry and don't really have any connections, you're going to get a lot more clout than you probably would on your own, and you're going to be able to walk into a relationship with a vendor that's very strong that the host has been fostering and building over the years. And one of the largest benefits of a host agency, and this is one you're all probably familiar with, is that your commissions are going to be higher. So when you join a host agency, your commissions are based on the host agency's total revenue. So not just you, but all of the agents in the network. So you're probably going to be at 15 or 16% commission instead of, say, 10 or 11 or 12% commission. And then with a host agency, there's a lot of knowledge with the agents within the network. So they've got very expansive networks, and you're able to access that information. They'll often provide online forums, and maybe they'll hold some annual meetings that you're able to attend, and you're able to be a part of community to combat the isolation of working from home, which we'll talk about later too. And hosts, if you guys are new to the industry, hosts are an amazing gateway into the industry. I'd argue that for any new agent, that there really isn't, in very rare circumstances, maybe not, but for everyone that's new to the industry, a host agency is definitely the best way to go. They offer tons of training when it comes to new agents. So they have mentoring programs, they have online training programs, and they offer continuing education programs for the experienced hosts or experienced agents out there. And then host agencies also, along with their revenue, they also have bulk buying power, which means you'll have access into complimentary or discounted marketing or technology programs. So say, for instance, you want to buy client base. If you were on your own, it would cost X amount. But with a host agency, they'll either provide it complimentary in a lot of cases, or they may charge a discounted rate. Same thing goes with the website. They may have a website program through online agency at a discounted rate or free, and save you money in that aspect. And then again, for those of you that are looking for more in-depth information, you can visit the resource section and you'll find it there, an article that will go over everything. All right, so now we're going to start getting into the heart of the matter and help you find your perfect host agency. Except there's 2 things that I want you to keep in mind as you start searching so you don't go crazy. Now, does everyone see this man on the screen? His idea of perfection is very different from my idea of perfection when it comes to lawn care. So perfection is really relative. And the same idea of perfection being relative holds true in your search for your host agencies. It's important to keep in mind that while it may be the perfect fit for someone else, it may not be the perfect fit for you. A lot of times I get agents writing into me or calling and asking me who the best host agency is. And then the first thing I want you to remember is that the question isn't and shouldn't be who's the best host agency. The question should really be, and the question you should be asking yourself, is who's the best host agency for me? Every agency, all of you guys have different needs, and every host agency has different strengths. So when you're shopping around, it's important to remember that there is no one host that works for everyone. There's not a one-size-fits-all question to who's the best host agency. It takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of research to find that for you. And the second piece of advice is going to be really simple. Relax. I know that sounds kind of odd, but I kind of pulled the old bait and switch on you guys with the title of this presentation. It's called Find the Perfect Host Agency. And the reality is, and I think we all know this, is that perfection is really stressful. So when you're searching for the perfect host and you have that weight on your shoulders, just think of all that stress that adds to the search process. Now, I know that finding a host agency is extremely important and it's not something to take lightly, and I agree 100% with that. All of you on here that are searching for a host is probably feeling one of these emotions: confused, overwhelmed, hesitant that they're going to make the wrong decision. And that's totally normal to have those thoughts. But one thing, sometimes I get agents that call in that are so stressed out, they're losing sleep. And you shouldn't be losing sleep believing that there's one gem of a perfect host agency. There's great host agencies out there. And I'll tell you from the perspective of someone that's very entrenched in the host agency, home-based agent community, I'm really lucky because my site and my work in the host agency field has allowed me to get to know a lot of the staff of the various host agencies. I get to speak to a lot of agents that belong to host agencies. And I will tell you guys, going back to this gem of a perfect host agency thing, is that there are a lot of great host agencies and there are very few bad host agencies. If you go in with a mindset that's a little more positive and go in saying that there's a lot of great options for you out there, instead of the mindset that there's one perfect host, it's going to relieve a lot of the pressure for you. Because the reality is that there's probably a couple host agencies that you would be really happy with. So you shouldn't feel like, I need to make this decision and my life is over if I choose the wrong host agency. There's probably a couple that you would be really happy with. And yeah, the truth is, if you do your due diligence, you're almost certain to end up with a host agency you're going to be happy with. And so to that point, let's talk about how to make sure you're doing your due diligence, and that's kind of where these 4 steps come in. So all of you out there are looking for a host agency, and I've worked with enough agents to know how confusing and overwhelmed you must be feeling. So let's break it down into some simple steps. When I talk with agents, I always recommend that they kind of break it down into these 4 sections. So if you want to end up with a host agency that's meeting your needs, you need to do some vetting, and these are kind of the steps you're going to follow. So you need to build a vision. You need to do your research. You need to start dating the different host agencies that you're interested in, and then you need to make the jump. So we're going to break down all of these steps and talk about them a little bit more in depth. But before we do, I do want to acknowledge that there's no magic wand to wave to find a host agency. The bottom line is, even with breaking it down into 4 steps and telling you details on it, is that it's hard work. And all of you out there should expect to dedicate a significant amount of time to your search. It's an investment in your future. So let's get started with the first one, and that is to build a vision. In the webinar description, we promised you that we'd show you how to nail down your needs before you start shopping. And that's what this one is. This is building a vision and knowing what you want so that you're going to be an educated consumer. And when you're building a vision, you're going to think about it in 2 parts. The first is envisioning your agency. Before you start looking for a host, you need to know what type of travel agency you want, who your clients are going to be, and how you're going to market to them. And I know that many of you on this call are new to the industry and may be thinking, how am I supposed to know what type of travel agency I want? I know nothing about travel. Well, the first thing is, to help you with that, is after this webinar, take a look at my site. There's a lot of articles on there that will help familiarize you and start that brainstorming process in your brain. But the big goal with this step is that you know what you want before you go in. There's no rule saying that it can't be changed, revised, or adapted as you go along. And in fact, it probably will be. But having a framework to build off of is so important. I talk to some agents that come in looking for a host agency and have no idea what they're looking for. And it's kind of like, how are you supposed to find something if you don't know what you're looking for? So this is what this step is doing. So the first thing, I'm going to give you some brainstorming options, just trying to get the creative juices flowing. What you guys can do is follow these, and hopefully some other ideas will come up in your mind about what you want your agency to be. So first thing is putting serious thought into your niche, which is what type of travel are you going to be selling? Are you going to be doing destination weddings and honeymoons, Mexico, Europe? There's a lot of different things you could be doing. And if you're completely lost on this one and have no idea where you want to start and need a little assistance, there's an article, again in the resource section, on finding a travel niche, and it's located on Host Agency Reviews, and it will walk you through a step-by-step brainstorm process of figuring out a niche that's going to work for you, that utilizes your network and your passions. You should also know who your target demographic is. And why is that important? You want your host to have strong programs that are going to appeal to your demographic. So for instance, if you know you want to have luxury clients, you're going to look for a host that has top commissions with luxury vendors and strong connections within the luxury world. Now, if you haven't thought about this beforehand and you're looking for a host agency, you may sign up for one that doesn't specialize in luxury. And if luxury is your clientele, you're really going to be doing yourself a disservice. You're probably going to have to change host agencies and lose a little bit of time and money that way. So think about this stuff ahead of time. And the same with the vendors. So you may be specializing in cruises and know that you only want to book Royal Caribbean and Disney Cruise Lines because you love their products. That's great. When you call and talk to your host agencies and start vetting them, you'll be able to ask them what specific commission levels they're at for your favorite vendors, and if they have any special relationships with them. Maybe they have a Disney promotion every summer where you get a $50 gift card for your clients. And if you don't know any vendors, for many of you this may be the case, you just don't know which vendors you want to be selling. And if that's the case, it's time for you to do some research. You can look at your local newspaper and see who the vendors are. So for instance, in Minnesota, where I'm based out of, a lot of people here like to get out of the cold, and they go to the Caribbean, and Mexico is very popular. If I just open the Sunday paper, if I'm not familiar with any vendors that sell travel out of my gateway, opening the Sunday paper will give you a very strong idea, or looking at billboards, it will give you an idea of who the popular vendors are out of your area. And you should also be thinking about what you're going to be marketing or how you're going to be marketing. Maybe your demographic is a little bit older and they really respond better to direct mail pieces. If that's the case, again, it's going to help you realize that you should be looking for a host agency with a strong direct mail program. That way, when you're calling them, you can ask to see some sample pieces of what's available. You can ask if they have any direct mail programs specifically for those vendors that you really like. And you can ask a lot more detailed questions about how the direct mail program works, what the costs are, etc. So this, again, just kind of some brainstorming ideas that should get your wheels turning, and your vision should be starting to form as far as your agency goes. And now you need to kind of decide what's really important to you. So you'll want to rank the different needs so that later on when you're searching through hosts, you can realize what the strengths and weaknesses of each host are and how important that is to you. If you really, the most important thing to you is that direct mail program, that'll help you narrow down your host choices. So next up, the second part of our vision is you need to start envisioning what your host agency is going to look like and what they're going to provide. Basically what you want in a host agency. So again, here's some things to start the process of you thinking. So just like when you were an employee, a cultural fit can make it a lot more pleasant. You'll get a better idea as you narrow it down and when you talk to host agencies of their corporate culture, but you can also tell from their website and their Facebook page what they're like. Make sure that that fits in with you. Just like cost is always a really sensitive thing in general, this one is always really hard for agents to narrow down. Now, for this one, don't feel like you're tied into it forever and ever. Remember that you are giving weight to the importance of each thing in your vision, and that's going to evolve as you go along. By coming up with kind of some costs, the highest you want to spend, what you feel comfortable spending, that's going to help you so you can narrow down and make sure that you're having realistic expectations as well. Some people will say, I want a free host agency. I would caution that anyone that's giving away something for free, they're probably not investing in their program because they are a business and they need to make money. So be realistic about your costs. And then for your host agency, what are you envisioning in terms of training? Maybe you really want a one-on-one mentoring program because you learn best that way, or you want to have in-person trainings because that's what really resonates with you. Or if you're someone that's really busy and your schedule's a little bit wacky, you may want to have self-paced online trainings, and that's really important that your host agency has that. And then as we mentioned earlier, excuse me, isolation is a big problem among those of us that work from home. So whether you're new or experienced, a community to learn from and ask questions can be immensely valuable to you. If you want a very vibrant online community, you can talk to your host agency about that and see what they provide. And then the same thing that goes as did for the last vision you had for your agency is you want to give weight to each one of your answers and figuring out how important this is to you in the grand scheme of things. And again, it can always change as you go along. So now that you've built your vision, you're ready to move on to the second step, which is finding a host that fits what you're looking for. The problem is that there are a lot of host agencies out there. My site, Host Agency Reviews, was created just for this purpose. It's to help people find information about host agencies all in one place. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased, but I really think it's the best resource out there for this step of the process. Anyone that's researching a host agency should be checking out the site. So I want to just show the site really quickly. So on Host Agency Reviews, like I said, you'll find over 90 host agencies in the U.S. and Canada. And the way it works, here's our complete host agency list. So you can see lots of information on there. And how it kind of came about is I went to every single one of these host agencies on this list. I went to their website, I read every single page on their website, and I documented details on each host. And after that, I wrote up a summary of each of their programs. So the host profiles, so say for instance we were to click on Montrose Travel. So Montrose Travel, you can see that each host agency profile contains the details and summaries. So here's the details. You can see how many sales they have, the number of contractors, if they're accepting beginner or experienced agents, etc. And then there's the About Us section, so you can learn all about their programs there. It's all in one place. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. If you find someone that you like on here, you can always visit their website through here and learn more about them. So let's see. Now, if you're, I want to share a few tricks with you as you're doing your research that I can help you out with. So the site is in its infancy. It's only 9 months old, and it's still evolving. So right now, there's no filter mechanism, which means if you have specifics you're looking for, like host agencies in a certain state, or let's say you want something really specific, like a host agency that has over $100 million in sales and belongs to the Professional Association of Travel Hosts, or PATH. If you're looking for that information, you can go on the site and click on every host agency and find it yourself. Otherwise, another option is you can just write in to me, and I can filter it out for you and send you a list of the hosts that meet that criteria. Next thing is sometimes you'll run across a host agency that doesn't have any reviews. And reviews are really important because it gives you a lot of insight into a host agency, and it helps you know that they're reputable. If there's a host on the list or that you're finding that doesn't have any reviews, it's not necessarily a done deal. You can always do a little bit more of the old-fashioned route and ask the host agency for references from some of their agents. It's time-consuming, but if you really like the host agency, it might be worthwhile to find that information. And while you're at it and while you're talking with them, you can let them know that you'd really love to see some reviews on the site about their program. And another thing when you're going through the site is that you'll notice that many of the hosts have near 5-star ratings. So how does that help you differentiate between them? And I always let people know that you can look at the star rating and get a good idea of things, but the real answers are going to be in the reviews. So you'll find subtle differences in the reviews between the host agencies. What you really want to be doing is looking at what the reviewers are saying or what they're not saying. So some hosts have very in-depth reviews on the program. Others have less in-depth reviews, saying things like, staff is great, they pay on time. Bam, it's done. One host may have reviews that stress the family atmosphere of the host agency and that they have a great training program. And if in your vision, a family atmosphere and a great training program are really important to you, you'll want to take a closer look at that host agency. Versus another host agency, they may have reviews that stress their amazing air contracts, their knowledgeable staff, and automated commission reports. It's nuances like that that can give you a glimpse into the culture of the host agency and how utilized and strong their programs are. Let's say this automated commission report you read about on another host agency really piqued your interest. If you have another host agency you really love, you can always ask them if they have an automated commission report and you just haven't read about it anywhere. So now you've kind of narrowed down your host agencies, found some that you really like, and you've probably got a few crushes on your host agencies, ones that you're really attracted to. And that's totally normal. The next step is you've got to call them and get to know them a little more. So essentially, it's time to start dating your host agencies. And with this step, you're choosing your favorite host agencies, you're gathering more in-depth information on them, and you're going to be comparing them for your final decision. By now, the list should be much smaller and more manageable. But even with a list of, let's say you only have 5 hosts that really interest you, their programs are going to start blending together for you. It's a lot of information, and they have very comprehensive programs. So to help with that, I created an Excel sheet of questions to ask a host agency. And here's kind of a sample of what it looks like. So you'll want to fill out as much information as possible before you call the host agencies. And the reason behind that is that'll serve as a reminder of what their program contains and what it's about. And it will jar your memory when you're talking to them if you need it. And then you can also double check your information while you have them on the phone. So if the call went well and you really want more information on the host agency and you think you might want to join them, there's a section over here for sending a contract. And that's really important. If you like the host agency and the interview process went well, make sure to ask them to send over a contract so that when you're ready to make that final decision, you have all the components you need. And if you are looking for that Excel sheet, you can download it on the site. Again, it's in the resources section in the article, Tips to Find the Best Host Agency. And all right, you guys, this is the last step. You're starting a new business and venturing into unknown territory. So even with all this planning that we've been talking about, when the time comes that you need to make your choice, you're probably still going to be second-guessing yourself and be really nervous. That's perfectly normal and it's understandable, so don't freak out when this happens. Starting a business and choosing a host is a risk, and risks are, for many people, very scary. But by default, a risk means you're not going to be sure of the outcome, so you need to just realize that. And then you also need to realize that in the end, a risk means you need to take a leap of faith. Except for you guys, it's not like you're jumping out of a parachute or jumping out of a plane without a parachute. You're making an educated leap of faith. You've done all your homework, and you've made sure that you are an informed consumer, and now you can make the jump and sign on with your favorite host agency. So this is our final slide. We'll take Q&As in just a second, but before we do, here's our contact information. So I'm really active online. Please feel free to connect up with me. on Facebook, Twitter. You can also find us on LinkedIn, Pinterest, Google+. And this webinar is really just scratching the surface on host agencies and starting your business. So if you are looking to learn more, we've got a free monthly newsletter that comes out on the full moon. So you can sign up for that on the site and get the articles delivered straight to your inbox. And as I mentioned before, you can also connect with us on Facebook and Twitter for more info for the articles in real time. And I do occasionally post cute pictures of my dog, like I did last Friday when he was working with me. So if you think he's adorable and want more pictures, definitely connect online. And Carla, I'm ready for questions whenever you are.
Sure, thanks. He's adorable. Is it a he, did you say?
I'm sorry, what?
Is it a he, did you say?
Yeah, he's a prince.
That's another benefit of working from home, right? You have a little partner in crime there.
Yeah, he's a bit of a micromanager, as you can tell from that picture, but
cute. Does he have? I'm trying to look on my. Is he wearing something like a scarf or something, or am I seeing things?
No, that's his sunshine scarf. He likes to wear that in the winter to brighten up the bleary days.
So cute. It's so cute. I saw it. I was looking. I'm like, oh, it looks like he's wearing something adorable, adorable. Thank you so much for that, Stephanie. Oh, and I'm glad you put all your contact information on there. And it was good that you were kind of bouncing back to your website because I could just see how much information and all the work you've done. I had gone to it a few days ago, but I didn't really drill down as deep as you were showing. So that looks great. It's good to know, and I'm sure everybody appreciates that. We do have a few questions here. And I wanted to find out, actually, did you review any host agencies in Canada yet? Maybe you mentioned that. I don't know.
Yeah, there's Canadian host agencies that are listed on there. And if there's any agents that want a list of just Canadian host agencies, drop me a line and I'll send you over who we have. Although I will say Canadian host agencies have been a lot slower at utilizing the site and getting reviews. So I would encourage any Canadian host agencies that when they're calling those hosts to just say, you know, it'd be really helpful if you had some reviews out there for us because it's doing everyone a disservice. People are going to still be asking for references, and the host agency keeps asking people for them, and they could just review them on the site.
Okay, good. Thank you. And Shelley Pentenko, she lives in Iowa, and she was mentioning that 7 years ago she registered with the state of Iowa, and they told her at this time, like 7 years ago, that she didn't need to do this every year if she's working under a host agency, and she wanted to find out if you knew if that was true or not.
Do you know, I don't know the details of Iowa because it's a lesser utilized state, but on that article I mentioned, Do You Need a Travel Agent License, which is on the resource page, it links to the Iowa website, and you can find the details on there that are most up to date.
Okay, if anybody has any other questions, feel free to type them in now. Jennifer just wanted to know, and who is posting the reviews for these host agencies? I mean, I guess, do you have like a mix or?
So it's agents that kind of the rules behind it are you need to either have been with the host agency at one point in time or that you're still currently with the host agency. So it's all agents that have experienced the program. And one nice thing about it, too, is you can tell a little bit about the agent that's posting. So you have to fill in how many years you've been in business and how many years you've been with the host agency, which can help you get a broader perspective of where this agent is coming from. And then there's also one thing that's nice, too, is sometimes they'll put the agents will put the website of their agency, so you can click on that and see it's a real live person and about their business and what they specialize in.
Okay, thank you. And Jennifer wants your opinion, too. Do most host agencies require you to live within a certain different distance from their offices? Do you know that? I mean, some might be different, but do they require you to live in a certain radius?
Not normally. The larger host agencies, on the list, you'll see that some of the host agencies are more prominently featured. And all of those host agencies are really active in working with agents all over the country. And they don't usually have restrictions. But I know there's a host agency here near Minneapolis that requires, they really want the host agencies to be geographically close to them. So it will say on their About Us section if their website mentioned anything about that. But as a general rule, most host agencies don't have that rule.
Okay. And then we have another good question here. Are there any hidden costs? I don't know if you mentioned this again. I'm sorry, maybe you did. I must have missed it. But did you mention, are there any hidden costs that maybe agents should be aware of, or is there any other advice?
Typically, no, there's not going to be hidden costs. Host agencies don't want people signing up because it takes a lot of work to sign up an agent. So they don't want someone signing up and then being upset about the cost. So they're usually really upfront. But at the same time, the agents have a responsibility to really do their research and understand what the costs are and asking and confirming those costs. So I would recommend, if you're nervous about any hidden costs, is when you're talking to the host agency on the phone, say, this is kind of what I understand the costs are. Are there any that I'm missing? Or what's the typical package that a agent that's new to the industry would have with you?
Okay, that makes sense. And another question, too, because we have some time, and I appreciate you, Stephanie, for being so good and opening this up for questions and let everybody pick your brain here. I know you're the person that, is the best to answer these, so I appreciate your time. We have another question. What do you suggest in checking out the background of a host agency, like the owners, whether it's credit or criminal, background checks? Would you?
Well, I don't know if you'll be able to run background checks on them, but one of the best indicators of a host agency and how they're doing is if they're paying commissions. And 10 years ago, the host agency field was very different. It was kind of like the Wild West, and there's a lot of volatility in it. And then now it's in its teenage, early 20s years, and it's a lot more settled. And on the site, there are some host agencies that aren't so great, and it comes through very clearly in their reviews. People will say they're not paying me commissions, and usually I'll see a trickle of a few in. So I know that host agency is struggling a little bit. And that, I think, is one of the best ways you can research different host agencies, is just seeing what other agents are saying. And then another place you can check, the Better Business Bureau would be a good one, and then PATH, which is the Professional Association of Travel Hosts. While no one can ever guarantee that a business is going to sink or float, PATH is really great because the hosts that are involved with it, they do have to provide certain financial statements to belong to PATH, so that might be something you want to look at.
Yeah, I saw that when you were showing one of the profiles there on Montrose, if they're a member of, PATH. I saw that one had PATH or Aster or something like that. So, Okay, thank you. I don't see any other questions here. If you have any last minute, type it in now. I do have a few comments, though. Stephanie, everybody's saying, this was very informative and great job, and it helped them out a lot. So we appreciate that. Thanks for the feedback.
Is there any about the dog?
Yeah. No, they want to know if he has his own Facebook page. They're going to follow him.
Oh, he does?
No, Mark says he's very cute. Fabulous webinar. And you know how to contact Stephanie. She's put her Facebook page, her Twitter, all her contact information on this last slide. So I encourage you to sign up for her newsletter. And want to say thank you. And hopefully everybody has a good rest of the week. And Stephanie, I'll be in touch with you soon. And I hope everybody has a good rest of the day.
Sounds perfect. Thanks so much, everybody, and thanks, Carla.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.